I've always been a pretty pragmatic guy, never really believed in ghosts or anything like that. But there's this one thing that happened a few years back that still gets under my skin. It started subtly, something I mostly just brushed off at first, but it built up in a way that just, well, you'll see. I was about 32 then, working as a plumbing supply manager in a small town about an hour north of Cincinnati. My wife, Sarah, and I had just bought our first house, a two-story colonial built in the late 1970s. It was a good house, solid, needed a little work, but nothing major. We had a 5-year-old son, Leo, and a baby on the way, so we were all about nesting and making the place our own. My routine was pretty set, up around 6, get Leo his breakfast, Sarah would get ready for work, and then I'd take Leo to daycare before heading to the warehouse by 8. It was a normal, quiet life. The first oddity started maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we moved in. Leo, who was usually pretty hyper in the mornings, would sometimes just stop and look at the corner of the kitchen, right by the pantry door. It was an empty corner, nothing remarkable about it, just where the wall met the wall. I'd ask him what he was looking at, and he'd just shrug and say nothing, or sometimes point and say a man. I figured it was just his imagination. Kids do that, right? They see things, or they make things up. Then he started doing the salute, like a proper army salute, hand to his forehead. He'd do it every morning right before breakfast. He'd stand there, facing that empty corner, salute, and then sit down to his cereal. It was weird, sure, but also kind of cute in a way. I mean, he was 5. I just assumed he'd picked it up from a cartoon or something, or maybe seen a picture of a soldier. I didn't connect it to the man in the corner at first. One morning, after he'd done his little salute routine, I asked him about it while making coffee. I just casually said, "Hey buddy, who are you saluting every morning? What's that all about?" He looked at me, serious as anything, and said, "The soldier." That caught my attention a little more, but again, I thought, okay, he's got an imaginary friend, a soldier. Kids do that too. Imagination is a powerful thing for a kindergartner. I pressed him a little. "What soldier, Leo?" he said. "The soldier who lives here." And when I asked why he salutes him, he told me, "The soldier says a polite house is a protected house." That was a phrase that stuck with me. A polite house is a protected house. It sounded a bit too formal for a 5-year-old to just conjure up. But I told myself he heard it on TV, or maybe Sarah said something similar in passing. I didn't think much of it beyond that. I mean, it was a phrase, nothing magical. We bought the house from an older couple, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. They'd lived there since it was built over 40 years. They were moving to Florida to be closer to their daughter. We didn't know much about them, just the basics you learned during the sale. Good people, seemed a little sad to leave their home, but that's understandable. Henderson getting a little teary-eyed when she handed over the keys. About a week or so after Leo started talking about the soldier, I was doing some yard work. Mr. Henderson had left a few things in the garage, some old tools he said we could have or toss. While I was rummaging through a box of old gardening gloves and rusted trowels, I found an old photo album. It was a thick, hardcover one, pages yellowed and brittle. I flipped through it, mostly pictures of holidays and family gatherings from decades ago. Then I came across a section of photos that looked different. They were portraits, mostly, of a young man in army fatigues. He couldn't have been more than 18 or 19, clean-cut, good-looking kid, big smile. There were a few pictures of him with the Hendersons, looking much younger, at what looked like a graduation or a ceremony. On the back of one of the photos, in neat cursive handwriting, it said, "Our brave Michael, May 2004, died overseas." I stood there in the garage, holding that album, a weird feeling in my stomach. Michael, the Henderson's son, died overseas in 2004. That detail hit me. So they had a son who was a soldier. I mean, it makes sense, right? Soldiers are everywhere, and people join the military. But the timing, the empty corner, Leo's soldier, it felt a little too coincidental. I shook my head then, telling myself it was just that, a coincidence. Kids pick up on things, stories they hear. Maybe Sarah had mentioned it, or I had. I didn't remember doing so, but it's possible. I didn't tell Sarah about the soldier or the photos right away. I didn't want to freak her out, especially with the baby coming. She was already stressed enough. I mean, what was I going to say? Our 5-year-old is saluting the ghost of the previous owner's dead son. It sounded crazy, even to me, and I was the one experiencing it. So I kept it to myself, just watched Leo a little more closely now when he did his morning routine. He kept saluting, kept talking about the soldier in the corner. Sometimes he'd tell me the soldier said he liked his toast, or that the soldier thought his drawing was good. It was all very benign, very childlike. I started to think maybe he recognized the uniform from somewhere, and had just attached the idea of a soldier to Michael after somehow seeing the photos, or even heard us talking about the Hendersons. I rationalized it over and over. Then, about a month after we moved in, things took a turn. I remember it was a Tuesday, because Tuesdays were usually my late nights at work, doing inventory. I was making Leo his breakfast, a bowl of Cheerios, same as always. He did his salute to the corner, but this time he didn't just sit down. He kind of lingered there, his little face creased in a way I hadn't seen before. He looked worried, almost scared. I asked him, "What's wrong, buddy?" He didn't answer right away. He just kept looking at that corner. I walked over and knelt down, trying to see what he was seeing, but there was nothing, just painted drywall. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Leo, what is it?" He finally looked at me, his eyes wide, and he said, the soldier says someone unprotected is coming." That sent a chill down my spine that was completely different from anything I'd felt before. It wasn't just a weird coincidence anymore. It felt specific, unprotected, coming. It wasn't playful or imaginative like his other comments. This sounded like a warning. My logical mind immediately started searching for explanations. Had he heard something on TV, a news report? Had someone said something to him at daycare? I mentally ran through everything, but nothing fit. It just came out of nowhere. I tried to keep my voice even. "Who's coming, Leo? And why are they unprotected?" He just shook his head. He said, "I don't know. The soldier just said they're unprotected, and they're coming." He was genuinely upset now, on the verge of tears. I picked him up and hugged him, trying to reassure him, telling him everything was okay, that there was no one coming. But even as I said it, I felt a knot in my stomach. Later that morning, after dropping Leo off at daycare, I drove to work in a daze. My mind kept replaying Leo's words, that phrase, "Someone unprotected is coming." It just sounded so ominous. I spent the whole day distracted, checking the security cameras at the warehouse more often than usual, keeping an eye on the parking lot. I felt on edge, like something was about to happen. That evening, when I picked Leo up from daycare, he seemed fine, playing with his friends, no mention of the soldier or anyone coming. I didn't bring it up either. I wanted to see if it was a one-off thing, a nightmare perhaps, that he was just confusing with reality. Sarah was home when we got back, and she asked about our day. I just gave her a vague, fine day. I still hadn't told her about any of it. I felt a weird need to protect her from it, whatever it was. That night I had trouble sleeping. Every creak of the old house, every rustle outside made me jump. I found myself getting up twice to check the locks on the doors and windows. I even went to the kitchen and stared at that empty corner, trying to see something, anything, but it was just a corner. I felt foolish, like I was letting my 5-year-old's imagination get to me, but I couldn't shake the unease. The next morning, Leo didn't mention the soldier or anyone coming. He did his salute, ate his breakfast, and seemed back to his usual self. I felt a wave of relief. Maybe it was just a silly thing. A kid's fantasy run a little wild for a day. I hope so. I genuinely hope so. Still, I found myself glancing at that corner more often, and I asked Sarah if she'd noticed anything strange, any unusual noises, anything out of place. She just looked at me funny and said, "No, why?" I brushed it off, saying I was probably just tired. That afternoon, I was at work, and my phone rang. It was Sarah, her voice high and shaky. She was crying. I immediately thought the worst, that something had happened to Leo or the baby. "What is it, Sarah? What's wrong?" She just kept saying, "The house, Mark, the house." I told her to calm down, to tell me what was going on. She said she'd been home alone, doing some laundry in the basement. She'd left the back door slightly ajar to let some fresh air in, which she sometimes did because our basement could get a bit stuffy. She usually just propped it open an inch or two and figured it was okay since our yard was fenced and we lived in a quiet neighborhood. But when she came back upstairs, she heard a noise. She said she heard footsteps upstairs, above her on the second floor. She froze because she knew she was alone. Leo was at daycare. I was at work. She thought maybe she'd imagined it or it was the house settling. But then she heard it again, a distinct thud, like something heavy had been dropped. Her heart was racing. She quickly grabbed the biggest kitchen knife she could find and called 911, whispering into the phone from our bedroom closet. The police arrived 5 minutes later. They went through the house, every room, basement to attic. They found nothing, no one. The back door was still slightly ajar, just as she'd left it. No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, nothing out of place that they could see. The officers told her it was probably just her imagination, or maybe an animal, a squirrel or something that got in through the tiny gap in the door and then snuck out again. They were kind about it, but clearly skeptical. Sarah was still shaken when I got home. She was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, pale. She said she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in the house. I tried to comfort her, telling her the police checked, that everything was okay. But inside, that uneasy feeling from the day before, it came back full force. Someone unprotected is coming. And the back door, slightly ajar, unprotected. I immediately thought about Leo's words. It was too specific, too close to what he had said. But I couldn't tell Sarah. Not now. She needed me to be the solid, rational one. I just kept reminding her that nothing was missing, no damage, everything was fine. I offered to stay home from work the next day, but she insisted I go, saying she didn't want to be alone, but that she would be okay, she just needed to rest. The next morning, I pulled Leo aside before breakfast. He was about to do his salute. I knelt down. "Leo," I said, "did the soldier say anything else yesterday? About someone coming?" He looked at me, a flicker of that fear from before in his eyes. He nodded. He said, "The soldier said to lock the back door, that whoever is coming will come through the back." My blood ran cold. The back door. The one Sarah had left ajar. The one through which she thought someone had entered. This wasn't a coincidence now. This was information. Information a 5-year-old could not possibly have known. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Had Sarah told him? No, she was too shaken, and he was at daycare when it happened. She wouldn't have mentioned anything like that to him. She would have wanted to protect him. I asked him, "Did the soldier say anything else?" His voice was barely a whisper. He said the soldier said they were bad, and that he couldn't stop them this time. My heart was pounding now. The soldier couldn't stop them. It sounded like a warning, a desperate one. I took Leo to daycare, and then instead of going to work, I drove straight to the Hendersons' old house, the one they'd moved out of. I knew their new address in Florida, just a general idea. I looked up their number. I called Mr. Henderson. I just needed to talk to him. I needed to know what he knew about his son, about this house. He sounded surprised to hear from me. I made small talk for a minute, asked how Florida was. Then I just got to it. I said, "Mr. Henderson, I have a strange question. It's about your son, Michael." There was a pause on the other end of the line. A long, heavy pause. He finally said, "What about Michael?" I told him about Leo, about the soldier in the corner, about the phrase, "A polite house is a protected house." I told him about the pictures of Michael I'd found. I told him about Leo saying someone unprotected was coming, and then what happened yesterday with Sarah and the back door. I explained how Leo had just told me the soldier said the back door, and that he couldn't stop them this time. I tried to sound calm, but my voice was shaking. Mr. Henderson listened patiently. When I finished, there was another silence. Then I heard him sigh, a deep, weary sound. He said, "My wife always said Michael never left that house. We thought it was just her grief." He paused again. He always used to say, "A polite house is a protected house," especially to Michael. He was a very proper young man, always said his please and thank yous. He believed in things being orderly. He went on, "Michael was very protective of his mother. When he was a little boy, she was sick for a while, and he was very worried about her. He made it his mission to look after her even then. He always checked the doors and windows before bed. Always. He always worried about strangers, especially with his mother being alone a lot when I was working." Then he told me something that made my blood run cold all over again. He said that a few months before Michael shipped out, there was a series of break-ins in our neighborhood. Nothing too serious, mostly opportunistic. Back doors left unlocked, windows open. He said Michael was home on leave during some of them. He got really worked up about it, swore he would protect the house, protect his mother. He actually scared off a guy one night, a guy trying to get in through our back door when he was home on leave. He yelled at him from the window, and the guy took off. Michael apparently told his mother that night, "I'll always be here to protect you, Mom. No one will ever get into this house who shouldn't." And then he added, almost as an afterthought, Before Michael went overseas, he gave his mother a small framed photo of himself in uniform. He told her to put it in the kitchen, by the pantry, so he could always keep an eye on things, even if he wasn't there. She kept it there for years after he died, Mr. Henderson said. It was only when they were packing to move that Mrs. Henderson finally took it down and carefully packed it away. I thanked him, my head spinning. I didn't know what to say. I just told him I appreciated him talking to me. I hung up the phone and just sat there in my car, staring at the old house. The photo of Michael by the pantry, the corner, Leo's corner. It all clicked into place in a way I couldn't ignore. I went home. I went straight to that corner in the kitchen. I didn't say anything to Sarah when I walked in, just went to the corner and stared at it. It was just a corner, but it wasn't. It was Michael's corner. And his photo used to be there. And Leo, my 5-year-old, had been communicating with him somehow. I didn't tell Sarah the full extent of what Mr. Henderson had said. I didn't tell her about the photo or Michael scaring off a would-be intruder from the back door. I just told her that the previous owners had a son, a soldier who died overseas, and that he was very protective of the house. I said I thought Leo was just picking up on an old story, maybe some leftover energy. Even as I said it, I knew it sounded weak, but it was the best I could do without sounding completely insane. But I did insist on putting in deadbolts on every exterior door that very day. I checked every lock, every window. I installed a motion sensor light in the backyard. I bought an alarm system. I did everything I could to make that house as secure as possible. I didn't want anything or anyone getting in. Leo never mentioned the soldier again after that day. He never saluted the corner. It was like whatever connection he had, it was gone. Or maybe he just grew out of it as kids do. But the feeling, that unsettling certainty that something real had been happening, has never left me. We still live in that house. Sarah and I had another baby, a girl. The house is full of life now, toys and laughter everywhere. But every time I walk into the kitchen, my eyes still drift to that empty corner. And every night, before I go to bed, I double check every lock, especially the back door. I don't believe in ghosts, not really. But I don't dismiss things as easily as I used to, and I still sometimes wonder who exactly was coming that day, and if we ever fully protected ourselves from them,